Excellent. So bear with me. These are hastily put together slides. There's a lot of pressure, I'll tell you, like 15 minutes to write this stuff up. We had very vigorous discussions that centered on 4 different themes. I've summarized them here in 5 slides, but there was one, I'm editorializing now, but I saw one theme that ran through each of our individual discussions. And in many ways, this is an old theme in IRIS, but I think it aligns with the charge, as I understand it, from the board for this meeting, which is to identify those needs, those ideas that need to be communicated to NSF in a 2018 and post-2018 world. So with that in mind, the 4 topics that we sort of through Brownian motion settled on, or spent our discussion time on, were instrument metadata, ramp coordination, cyber infrastructure, and undergraduate and graduate education. And a theme that ran through all of those is that IRIS has a strong role to play, not necessarily in doing those, but in coordinating those. So that is that IRIS is really in a position that no one else is to provide frameworks for under which some of these things can do. And if when done right, IRIS provides the framework, and everyone in this room actually ends up doing the majority of the legwork. But that was a theme through all of these. So fortunately, they kind of broke into a dirt data desktop dissemination, so we come out looking pretty organized here. And that was through good fortune. So the first one was instrumentation data standards. There's a lot of really innovative instrumentation design going on right now. We're definitely in the midst of a neat instrumentation boom, and this community has argued long and hard for a lot of what one might dub, smart sensors. That is, some of the legwork that we end up doing on metadata and keeping data tagged appropriately is all stuff that can be done, in the instrumentation side. Everyone recognizes that, but the need identified in this discussion was that IRIS can. What doesn't exist right now is exactly what do we want? What are the standards that we could provide to each of the manufacturers and say, these are the metadata. This is what we expect in instrumentation. Formats and all that are something, a completely unrelated discussion, but what do we mean? What information do we want? And obviously IRIS is well poised to spearhead whatever working groups or whatever discussion would lead to this kind of standardization. The second one is rapid deployments. RAMP, as it was long called. This goes back to the early days of IRIS and has long been a priority in this community. However, the nature of rapid deployments has evolved. Once upon a time, the thinking was very much based around aftershock chasing, following large earthquakes. And in 2014, there's a diversity of applications that actually have there are many, many kinds of time-sensitive, opportunistic deployments that don't necessarily fit that paradigm. Some of our partner organizations, USGS and others, do put a lot of energy and a lot of time toward the aftershock problem, but this community, IRIS, is well poised to do the coordination to figure out how to deal with rapid deployments that aren't just aftershock chasing. There's been a lot of good examples over the last few years of things that have been mobilized through IRIS that were really neat, opportunistic science moments. And IRIS, again, remains uniquely poised to coordinate that. We, too, spent a lot of time on the cyber infrastructure. I blame Gary entirely for seeding that discussion earlier, but it was absolutely appropriate. Tough discussion, really. It's easy to have a lot of pie in the sky sorts of ideas. This is a diverse community, but one of the ideas that seemed to be a theme that we settled on was, again, that IRIS can play an important role in organizing this. Not necessarily we're not asking Iris to set about writing a whole new software suite or something. There are a lot of good models in our community, CIG, of course, being one of them. And Iris is poised to provide the frameworks beyond whether this is code repositories or structures for validation or advisory committees or perhaps limited professional engagement, professional software engagement on key pieces. This is a tough world. There's a lot of challenges in this, but if anybody can organize or herd the cats that we are from a research perspective, this is where Iris can play a role. And I think I had some text that got snipped off of this slide. It escapes me now. There was a good recommendation in there. Damn it. Anyway, okay, last slide. A really interesting discussion on education and the fact that everybody in this room, or most people in this room, are involved in some way with educating students on a lot of material that actually overlaps between us. And there was a shared sentiment that we could coordinate our teaching efforts, our research, or our teaching materials, and better leverage all the things that are going on in this room. And again, just to kind of beat this theme, this is a place where Iris can play a role, not necessarily by developing a new set of curriculum materials, but by providing the structures that allow people in this room to pay into that. So what that, I'm a code person, so the analogy to me was sort of a code repository, if you will, for teaching materials. The word living textbook came up. I thought that was a really good word to use in this discussion. But I know there have been discussions along this line already in the EPO program. But, this is a place where Iris could provide some structure so that, and to be fair, incentivize it a little, publicize it, make sure that people get some credit, make sure that there's a real motivation to contribute materials that would then allow, new faculty who are starting up, they've been tasked with teaching an advanced seismology class and are sitting about going, well, I'm going to spend the next 6 months putting together materials for this class. Why don't I start with the Iris repo and, pull those sections that help them customize the course that they want. Again, this is a perfect example of where Iris is uniquely poised to coordinate, motivate, incentivize this. So these are the topics that we talked about, and I was pleasantly surprised. I really think there is sort of a theme that runs throughout that. It's not a shocking theme. It's not new, but it's one that we do well to remind ourselves of.